How much is a human life worth, right? This is an impossible question, right? I mean, each life is invaluable, of course. But in reality, we actually evaluate each other every single day. We choose who to spend time with, we choose who to spend time on, and the value that we place on each other is a direct result of our perceptions, what we know about the other person, our relationship with them, and of course, how they impact our own lives. So, how do you value people you've never met? Now, I'm going to tell a very personal story. I experienced this issue keenly a couple of years ago. My campus experienced the loss of two beautiful young students by suicide within 6 months of each other. And not only did I know both of these students personally, but my own nephew had also taken his own life just the year before. So I was massively impacted by this experience, and I threw myself into the aftermath. I started helping all their friends of these students, working with our administration, consoling dozens of students in my office every day, and I became a very vocal and adamant advocate for mental health and wellness issues on our campus. Because for me, it was more tragic or important than the loss of these young women that I knew personally, right? But I wasn't really prepared for the huge mix of reactions that I would face within and outside my campus, because of course everybody was really sad. Everybody felt this was a massive tragedy, especially to lose people who are so young, but not everyone trusted the information that they were getting around this issue. And other people didn't actually really see that it connected with their own experiences. They thought this was a fluke and it didn't really relate to what they felt was going on in their own world. And still others really didn't see that they had any role to play in any action that would be taken. So because I couldn't convince everybody of changes that need to happen, not only on our campus, but maybe more broadly in academia, it was so traumatic for me that it even took a big toll on my own health. But I'm telling you that experience, and the first time I've ever actually said this publicly, because as painful as it was, and it still is, it gave me one of the most profound experiences and important lessons of my life. Because I learned then that no matter how important something is to you, even a human life, right? It will only be important to other people if they trust the information that they're getting, if they understand how it relates to their own lives, and finally, if they also feel personally responsible for making the changes needed. And the same is true for these SDGs, right? All of us are here today because we value them. And I bet, honestly, if you ask any single person across the world, a farmer in Punjab or a CEO in Singapore, they will also realize that they're important. But they won't necessarily trust you or any information you might be giving them. And they might feel there's much more important things that they have to tackle at that very moment. And even if they do have value, they may not see how they actually maybe play a role in achieving these SDGs. But I believe that sustaining this planet has less to do with these SDGs themselves and more to do with us as human beings. I believe that achieving the SDGs means that we have to meet at the nexus of these three attributes of trust, value, and responsibility. And that's why we started the ECHO Network. So we were initiated by the principal scientific advisor to the government of India in 2019. And we are a social innovation partnership. And we have the specific focus of increasing the trust, the value, and the responsibility of all of us for India's human and environmental ecosystems. We're a platform where organizations and individuals can interact and generate a shared purpose through science collaboration. So I'm going to walk you a little bit through how partnerships like ours can help instill trust, value, and responsibility for our SDGs and the future of our planet. The first goal is really the hardest to obtain. So we start trying to obtain this goal by being inclusive. We accept anyone into the network, young, old, any background. And all we ask is you take this pledge. As a citizen of Earth, I pledge to listen to people from all walks of life, share my stories with them, and build a new narrative together that will help us to sustain India and our future. That's why we're called the ECHO Network, right? Trust starts with respect, and respect starts with listening to other people. okay? Listening regardless of who they are. And we need to acknowledge, honestly, that there's a lot of mistrust between our sectors of society today. And honestly, a lot of people simply refuse to listen to each other. We experience this all the time in our network. And even just last week, we received the following response to an invite we gave to one of our events. We got this response: too many corporates are trying to get into the agriculture, environment, climate space, using these as a green screen without giving up their profit-seeking and nature labor exploitative actions. Our role has been to expose these and to support communities and civil society struggling for more meaningful, deeper, and fundamental transformations. Now, this person is exactly right. Community transformation is absolutely key to achieving the SDGs, but of course, communities are inextricably tied to each other, and honestly, they're tied to their governments, and they're tied to industries, economies, and to everything. Our SDGs are system-level problems, and pointing fingers like this and refusing to work together is honestly going to get us nowhere. So one of the ways we try to fight this mistrust is that we are actually community-owned. We are supported by government and corporate and academic and nonprofit and social sectors of society. As shown in our inaugural photo here in front of us, no one sector owns us, and no sector itself dictates what we say or do. And each sector can see themselves in our network. People trust what they recognize. And that's why we run by organic growth. So our network has expanded to 900 members across 18 countries in 1 year, simply because we have relied on people who have trusted us to introduce us to people who trust them. And building that network and that community of trust is how we're going to make things happen, because people are more likely to trust those that they know. So once we've established this trust, now we have to tackle the issue of values. And how do you get others to value science and technology issues? Well, the first thing, you can only value that which you're aware of. The pandemic has shown us how poor our global understanding of science actually is, and how quickly terms like PCR and vaccine efficacy can become valued once the human costs of things like a pandemic start to mount. So we have to increase our global awareness of science and technology, not only through education, which is, of course, absolutely essential, as we all know here today, but also by helping our citizens and our decision makers actually understand what the scientific issues are and how they relate to their everyday lives. So we do this through campaigns like our Sustainable Celebrations, which is actually happening right at this moment during this festive season that we have in India, where we're relating issues of waste management and water and air pollution to the rituals and ceremonies and celebrations that many of us are experiencing right now in India. We also need to connect with people in the language and the cultures that they relate to. And that's why we work with young ambassadors to train them in communication techniques and have them interact back in their communities to share their knowledge, and also bring the knowledge from the communities back to our network members so we can have information exchange and understand each other a little bit better. And finally, values, as I said, really start about perception. To parse this, we actively engage our network members in problem-solving workshops where we guide them in a methodological series of exercises that are systematically designed to help them to gain a mutual understanding of each other and find ways to integrate their own values and goals with those of others. And that way they can develop shared values and therefore develop a common purpose. And that leads me to the last attribute, which is responsibility. Now, we don't stop with just those common values and goals, but we actually drive them further. We use theory of change exercises to help those experts identify actually ways to work together and to achieve those goals through collaborative action. And then we enable them to do so. So that means that each sector then has ownership and involvement in the results of these values and can actively envision how their work integrates with other sectors that maybe originally they didn't trust so much. And finally, we can't stop there, right? We have to bring this ownership to every citizen of our planet, especially in India, but also everywhere. Because beyond awareness, we have to discuss how these issues that we're bringing up in the SDGs actually relate to people's everyday lives and what each individual can actually do to solve the problem. I mean, these SDGs are really systemic, large issues, but by motivating small, manageable actions in our communities, like, for example, this one. So we have a lot of waste that we produce in India. So instead of giving gifts this holiday season, why don't you give an experience instead? Cook together, go on a walk together, experience the ocean together. It uses less waste, and it's a lot more sustainable, right? And this helps people to think about how they play a role in these much, much, much bigger issues, and it makes them owners in the problem and drivers of the solution. And only with that mindset will these SDGs be realized. So just to conclude, it really took immense tragedy for me personally to learn the importance of these three attributes: trust and value and responsibility to achieving our goals. And honestly, it is so much harder than installing solar panels or water filters, because it's actually changing hearts and minds, and that is a really difficult job, but I believe it's what's going to make the difference, and honestly maybe it's the only thing that will. So to go back to that question, so how much is a human life worth? Well, at the Echo Network, we'd say it's worth as much as every year, every day, and every second of our collective future together. And I hope that you will join us and each other. You will listen to each other. You will open your heart, and you will work together, because India is calling. Thank you.